What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. If you're new here, Rebranding Safety is changing the perception of health and safety, and we do that right here on the YouTube channel. We do that on the podcast as well. This video is a pod clip from a podcast. You can get the podcast on pretty much any platform. Just search Rebranding Safety. Rebranding Safety is sponsored by Paradigm Human Performance HSE subscription service, the perfect solution for those of you in small, medium-sized enterprise that feel like you're just spinning loads of plates all the time. Without further ado, let's get into today's pod clip.
This whole conversation is very important. That again got left out of a lot of HOP deployments. And that is, you give the workforce things that will work for them at home, and they'll do them at work. If you give them something you want them to do at work, they might do it there, but they ain't going to do it at home. So it's probably the same in England as it is in the US. Over 80% of serious life-altering injuries happen at home, not at work. So if these organizations truly have a value that they want their people to be safe, and you see that all the time in organizational values, right? We value the safety of our employees. Do you? And the question would be, if you do you value their safety at home and at work? And if you do,
you carry on. I can hear
in
you.
other
I'm
words,
just shutting my window.
And if you do value that, are you giving them things that work for them and their families at home so that they can play with them a little bit, just like you did with verbalization, and get their own light bulb?
Definitely.
You can't take that shit away from people once they realize it works for them at home.
Yeah.
So there's three main tools that work to do that. Verbalized, point, and touch, and that's for skill-based and high rule-based mode.
Yeah.
Step by step, which is how we ought to follow processes, and stop and seek out help when you're not sure. And if you do those and you teach people how to know that they're unsure instead of just say unsure, here are the characteristics of unsuredom. Then what you do when you're talking to the workers, when you're involving them in the process of how this is all going to get integrated, then they're actually telling you where those can be built in as a part of how they do work. Then it's their idea. It's not management pushing this thing on them. And so if people would ask, does that work? I'll tell you this: 10 years after we deployed at a major factory, about 2,500 people, had the opportunity to stop into that town and go back in and visit some of the folks that we'd known 10 years ago, many of whom had moved on to other things and brought us in at other places, many of whom were still there doing the same job they were doing. So was walking around with one of the managers, and we walked up to a maintenance crew, and the manager introduced, this is the guy that introduced us to HP, and the union worker said, "Oh, that HP shit, we don't do that anymore." And my heart just crushed, and I went, "Oh, well, I guess, hey, thanks for that." And then we proceeded to watch the crew do their briefing and use every HP concept, do their work and use every HP concept. So it's not a program, it's a way we do business. That's true integration, when the third generation of workers does it and doesn't even know they're doing it.
So they were doing it, but they were like, "Oh, we don't do that shit anymore." But they were doing
exactly
it.
Because they weren't doing human performance.
That's weird.
But they're talking about in the pre-task briefing. They're saying, okay, who here is going to be in knowledge-based performance mode? Who is this a first-time task for? Or how many of you haven't done this in the last 6 months? And 3 people raise their hand. Okay, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this briefing. They say, all right, now in these steps of the process, we really want to verbalize, because we know that if we mess it up here, we're going to have to go back and do it. Good. Okay, Bob, you're going to do it. And they get out in the field, and that's what they did. They did what they briefed. And then they came back and they did what we want them to do. They debriefed the task. You know, they just asked the 4 simple questions of a debrief. And this generation of workers knew that helped them with their performance from their previous jobs, but they didn't know they were doing HOP or HP. That's exactly what you want. And the quicker you can get there, the better you are.